Hey everyone, how's it going? It may surprise you to learn that growing up, my favorite generation Pokemon was not in fact Gen 1, but was the Johto games. Generation 2 were my all-time favorite games, and the 100 Pokemon introduced in Generation 2 hold a very special spot in my heart. And yet, while to me they are as classic as the original 150 or 151 if you include Mew, I just don't find that they get the same love in the games going forward as their Kanto counterparts. And no game made this clearer to me than Pokemon Sapphire, the game I first got in Generation 3. Now, of course, we're playing Pokemon Emerald in this video, which is just, in my opinion, overall a better game, but it has the exact same Pokedex. This is the first generation that had what we now know as a regional Pokedex. There are only 200 Pokemon in the Hoenn regional dex, well, 202 if you include mythicals, which is actually a step down from the new Pokedex, which had 251 entries. I guess this time I'm including mythicals. Now, without Googling it, I want you guys to guess how many of those 202 Pokemon are Hoenn Pokemon. The answer may surprise you, because it is 135. That's right, 2/3 of the Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald Pokedex are made up of new Pokemon. That leaves just 67 entries for the remaining 251 Pokemon. And put another way, a lot of my favorite Johto Pokemon just didn't make the cut. How many made the cut, you might wonder? A paltry 19%, which is 19 since there are 100 Johto Pokemon. And that's not a lot of Pokemon to choose from. So in today's video, we're going to be doing what I'm going to start off as a hardcore Nuzlocke, where we're only allowed to use Johto Pokemon. As an extremely inexperienced Nuzlocker, I have a feeling I'm going to give up, and I have a feeling I know when. So this challenge is more to showcase how few Johto Pokemon there are, and to give me a bit of a break. Also, if I am successful, there is a follow-up video I want to make, which would absolutely be insane. But I've wanted to do a video on it for a long time, and some of you already know what I'm talking about. But let's not talk about future videos. Let's get to the current video, a Johto-only hardcore Nuzlocke. Oy. But first, you may have noticed that while my streaming room is awesome, there's quite a lack of, well, designs or anything on my walls. Well, today's sponsor, Displate, is going to help me out here and allow me to customize my streaming and gaming room with the games and other nerd stuff I know and love. Displate makes premium metal posters of various sizes, and what makes it so great is that if you don't want to drill holes into the wall, you're renting, well, don't worry. With its magnet system, it is a breeze to put on the posters and to take them off, swap them. It's really cool. Now, the posters themselves are amazing. Displate has many of your favorite brands, and you'll see some displayed right here on my walls. I absolutely love the posters I picked out, and the fact I can rearrange them any which way means I can change the look of my room quickly. There are so many awesome licensed brands to choose from, and I actually had trouble just sticking to 4. But I chose these 4 because not only did they look good, but I thought they looked good in my streaming room. I would encourage you to go on their website and look for some of your favorite brands. There is just so much to choose from. If you would like to get something from Displate, which by the way supports the channel, well, good news. I have a promo code and a link in the description. Plus, if you use the code JROSE, you'll get 22% off if you get 1, 27% if you get 2, and 33% if you get 3 or more. I really love my Displates, and I hope you will too. Alright, so before we even begin, I probably should go over what the rules are going to be. First and foremost, this is an actual cartridge of Pokemon Emerald. Absolutely zero modification has been done to it whatsoever. Additionally, this challenge wouldn't really be possible in Ruby and Sapphire for reasons we will talk about in just like a couple minutes. But here is the goal. We are going to catch the first and only the first Johto Pokemon we see on every route. We are going to adhere to the level cap system. In other words, when we begin a gym battle, the levels of all our Pokemon cannot be higher than the highest level Pokemon of the gym leader, otherwise known as their ace Pokemon. I'm not sure if I'm going to stick to the fact that if my Pokemon faint, I'm going to release them, and I'm not sure I'm going to stick to the 1 per area, and we will talk about why a little bit later. For now, let's try and do this as close to a hardcore Nuzlocke as possible, and if I fail, I'd love to see someone else try this. I think it would be a fun, somewhat challenging, I would say maybe like a 5 out of 10 difficulty for someone who has a bit of experience with these. And again, to be clear, I am not this person. Now, you may have noticed that we took Mudkip. There was no real reason for this. I just took Mudkip because why not? Now, obviously the first battle, we're not going to have a Johto Pokemon to use, and this is perfectly fine, but with just one more battle against this Poochyena trainer, we're actually going to be at a point where we can collect our very first, and for a while only, Johto Pokemon. Deep in the grass of Route 104, although it was actually my first encounter, so not all that deep, lies Marill. Marill is not available at this point of the game in Ruby and Sapphire, and so we would have no Pokemon to use for Roxanne, which makes the challenge feel kind of silly. But in Emerald version, Marill is here, and it is our first, and for a while, our only Johto Pokemon. Now, we got incredibly lucky with this Marill, since Marill can have 2 different abilities, both of which are actually kind of useful. In Generation 3, actually, it didn't matter as much. The Thick Fat ability, which we did not get, halves the damage we take from Ice and Fire, which we resist anyway, but it makes us even bulkier against those. We instead got Huge Power, which doubles our attack. Not our base attack, just whatever our attack is, double it. There's a little bit more complication to that, but that's the closest and simplest explanation. Now, in Generation 4 and beyond, where we get moves like Waterfall, which are physical water moves, this makes Marill even better. However, in this game, we're going to have to rely on non-same type attack moves. Now, you may have noticed I'm not going to go and battle trainers because if I do that, there's a chance my Marill can faint. This is kind of the reason a lot of people don't enjoy doing Nuzlocks, because unless you hack in rare candies, it can be really tedious to level up all your Pokemon, and Pokemon Emerald, like Gold and Silver, don't have the greatest way of this happening naturally. So yeah, a lot of time is spent just making sure my Marill is at the appropriate level. Now, Roxanne's team, she has a level 15 Nose Pass, so I can be no higher than level 15 as I enter the battle. There's a technique that Nuzlockers use, and because everyone in the comment section can be so mature, we're gonna call it bordering. But it's that we get to the very edge of the experience points bar, bordering on leveling up, and so the second we KO a Pokemon, we do level up, which is legitimate. Now, the actual Roxanne battle thankfully goes pretty well because Marill is a water type, and it does get Water Gun. That means we'll one-shot Geodude, and we're already level 16. We're actually very close to evolving into Azumarill. Nosepass I was a little concerned with. Water Gun doesn't do a lot because it is not double super effective, but thankfully we're so slow that after just one Rock Tomb, Nosepass outspeeds us, which leads to a very curious thing where Nosepass will no longer prioritize using Rock Tomb and just seems to attack somewhat randomly. If it went for Rock Tomb after Rock Tomb, we probably would lose because Roxanne, as you may have seen in the text, has 2 potions plus an Oran Berry. And although we have an Oran Berry, 3-on-1, or actually it's a 1-on-1 battle, and we are level 16, but Marill is a very, very weak Pokemon. Actually, I can show you the base stats. I haven't shown them up to this point. Yeah, Marill's really bad, but thankfully, this is going to be one of the final battles we actually need to use Marill, because if we look at Brawly's team, you'll see that his highest level Pokemon is level 19, the Makuhita, meaning Marill will evolve into Azumarill, and Azumarill's base stats are quite a bit better than Marill, although nothing to write home about, still a massive improvement. It's at this point, though, we need to talk about one of the sort of asterisks, one of the sort of questionable things I chose to do in the run. And this is something that I and most of my chat agreed with, but there was one really annoying person who didn't, and they're wrong, and I'll explain why they are wrong. So here is the deal, Jessica Biel. If we were to adhere to this challenge as strictly as possible, the next Pokemon we would be able to get would not be caught until after we beat Watson. The only Pokemon we would have on our team is Azumarill. Additionally, 2 Pokemon we otherwise would be able to catch at some point would be completely not allowed. And this is where we need to talk about those 19 Johto Pokemon. Well, obviously 2 of them are like Marill and Azumarill, so it's not 19 evolutionary lines, it's 19 Pokemon. I actually should go over what some of those Pokemon are. 2 of them are Igglybuff and Pichu. Many of them are only available later in the game, and some of them, like our next 2 Pokemon, don't start as Johto Pokemon. There are a few of these, but the first one we're going to talk about is Crobat. There is no legitimate way to catch a Crobat in Pokemon Emerald as a Crobat. You must evolve a Golbat, which is a Kanto Pokemon. So I had to make a ruling here. Will I allow for Pokemon that eventually evolve into Johto Pokemon? And the answer I gave was unequivocally yes. Not only because having more than one Pokemon for a third of the game is just more entertaining and fun for me, but also because it would basically write off almost a quarter of the possible Pokemon. So yeah, we chose to do this, meaning our next Pokemon is in fact technically not a Johto Pokemon. It is this level 9 Zubat. Now, Zubat evolves into Golbat at level 22, meaning at level 23, we can evolve it, in theory, into Crobat. We'd have to maximize its friendship, and that is going to be very annoying, but that does mean for Watson, we could already have a Crobat, although it would not be good against Watson, but that's neither here nor there. Our next Pokemon we're going to catch falls into the exact same camp, and that is Oddish. Oddish can evolve into Gloom, which evolves via Sunstone into Blossom. There is no way to just catch a Blossom, although in theory we could catch a Gloom and then just never use it. But again, I just don't see the reason to allow Zubat and not allow Oddish. It's just, there's no consistency there. So, in a Johto-only Nuzlocke, we're actually going to be using 2 Kanto Pokemon for the next gym, but it is what it is because these are the only Johto Pokemon that are even available. And again, 2 of them aren't even actually Johto Pokemon, at least not yet. It took me about 3 hours of in-game time to make it to Brawly. And the reason for this is without rare candies, leveling up, you need to be very careful and also make sure you don't over-level. It's really annoying and tedious, which is why most major Nuzlockers either play games that have a rare candy option or just hack them in themselves. But since I do this so infrequently, I've opted not to. I'm going to lead with my level 19 Zubat, which sadly has no flying moves, but it can confuse Machop and then try to astonish it and knock it out that way. I figured this would work, but Machop does have Seismic Toss, and Brawly does have not 1, but 2 Super Potions, which is very, very powerful for this point in the game. Now, I do swap into Azumarill, which has Water Gun, and that proves to be okay. Unfortunately, a crit happens against me. I swap into Zubat, and then knock out Machop with Astonish. Now, Meditite is an interesting Pokemon. If you've never seen this battle before, Meditite can be easily cheesed. Its only attacking move is Focus Punch, and in order for Focus Punch to actually hit you, you need to not attack the Meditite, so we just simply have to not stop attacking Meditite, and it is extremely tedious because Brawly uses his second Super Potion, but we do get through. Now we have to deal with Makuhita, and although it doesn't have great moves against Zubat, it does have Bulk Up as a way to bulk up its stats, and this actually could start being a problem. So I swapped in Oddish and put it to sleep, and then I swapped in Azumarill, and I'm going to use a strategy I've used a lot. Uh-oh. Okay, great. It hit itself in confusion. No, I meant to use Rollout. No! Okay, we should be... No, I don't know if we're fine. We may have just lost here. It went for Bulk Up. Oh, goodness. Vital Throw. Yeah, look at this. And this is why Nuzlocks can be really tough. That was actually a misclick. But if Oddish faints here, yeah, I think it outspeeds. That's game. So, I don't actually think I can even win at this point. So if we were doing an actual hardcore Nuzlocke, the run would have ended right here. It is my own fault, and this is why if you ever watch like Peachal or Flygon or any of these people do Nuzlocks, now obviously in a game like Pokemon Emerald, they know at the back of their hand this would be easy for them, but the way you start off and get better is using a damage calculator and figuring out what moves will do and then kind of your order. I, meanwhile, like to rush in recklessly, and while that's really fun for the types of challenges I do, it's not really conducive to good Nuzlocking. So the question I had is, do I just reset, or do I kind of just say, all right, we lost once to Brawly, and move on? Chat didn't want me to do this again because this was kind of tedious. In real time, this had already taken an hour and a half, and there wasn't a lot of appetite to do it again. I actually reset in thinking about resetting the entire game, but in my third attempt, I actually do win this time. And this time, against the Metatite, if we just kind of fast forward a little bit, I do use the Defense Curl rollout strategy. Now, it is not very effective, and I actually get a very inopportune miss against Focus Punch. However, Defense Curl doubles the power of rollout, and it actually worked out perfectly that the 5th turn of rollout would be as Makuhita swapped in, which is enough to one-shot it, not allowing it to use bulk ups. Now, how consistent is this strategy? I can't tell you, and so this might just be a reset point. Again, if you were doing this Nuzlocke in earnest, you would have 6 Pokemon, and there's a lot more room for error. A Nuzlocke with only 3 Pokemon for the second gym, it puts you at a pretty big disadvantage, since in theory, it should be Mon for Mon. If 2 of my Pokemon fainted, I would only have 1 for Watson. And that would be really bad. And yeah, let's talk a little bit about Watson as we continue on. I'll show you the Rival 2 battle, which wasn't too bad. So Watson has 4 Pokemon, meaning he'll actually have more Pokemon than me. One of them will be a Magneton, which the only move I have that is regular effective will be, well, either Rock Smash, which is actually super effective but really weak, or Water Gun. Actually, I think I'll have Bubble Beam by this point. But regardless, that will be a Pokemon, Azumarill, which is weak to Shockwave. Now, had I not lost to Brawly already, this is where I figured, all right, we'll have to convert this from a Nuzlocke to, let's call this a Nuzlite, where basically I've seen other people do things like this, where we have checkpoints. So the way we can modify the challenge into this Nuzlite is any Pokemon that faints going to the gym can't be used until after we beat the gym. And once we beat the gym, all our Pokemon are now free to use for the next segment. Kind of like Star Fox 64 rules, where if one of your partners goes down, unlike in the original Star Fox where they're just kaput and they're gone for the rest of the game because their ship is no more, in 64 they just go in for repairs. Our Pokemon are just going in for repairs. Oh, weird thing. There was a show, I don't even remember, called Kaput and Zosky. It was on YTV, which is a Canadian channel. I'm sure it was in the States. I don't know why, but every time I hear the word kaput, I think Zosky, and I don't remember the show. I just remember the name. I could not picture it. I could not tell you a thing about it. It just was a show called Kaput and Zosky, and I'm sure I'm going to look it up after this voiceover, but like, yeah, every time I say the word, I think of it. Now, here's something you may not expect. What if I told you it took me as many attempts to beat Watson as it did to beat Brawly? You'll be like, J-Rose, really? Well, here's the thing. As long as we get Gloom to put Voltorb to sleep, in my first attempt I used a very different strategy. We give Azumarill Cherry Berry, trying to make sure it's not paralyzed. Everything is now level 25. It actually outspeeds Electrike. Unfortunately, I am static, so that looks bad, right? But Magneton goes for Supersonic, and we're able to knock it out, and now we're on turn 5. Oh, we're paralyzed. Okay, well, that sucks. We actually probably still are going to be able to win here, because I think Gloom can finish this off. As long as I put it to sleep, I actually didn't mean to use Absorb there. I meant to use Acid, especially if we get a defense drop. It does have a Citrus Berry, which is 30 HP, but if we get a defense drop, there we go. There we go. I'm going to put it back to sleep. There we go. We should be fine. And then acid, and one more. Okay, a few more. All right, there was another super potion in there. All right, it woke up. Actually, we may lose gloom here. Let's go into Crobat, which should outspeed as long as we don't get staticked. And I actually think Leech Life. No, I should have gone Wing Attack. I should have gone Wing Attack. What am I doing? Oh, wait, I have a Cherry Berry. Oh, no, it paralyzed me. Oh, no, Shockwave. All right, we won. Now, at this point in time, I wasn't sure how I was going to handle Azumarill fainting. Do I release it, or am I allowed to use it? And basically, the problem with releasing it is there are so few Pokemon to choose from, it kind of wouldn't be fun in this run. So again, if you want to try this as a Nuzlocke, there is so much stakes here, but I guess I wanted a more chill version. I actually tried to battle Watson just to see if I could get all 3 Pokemon through, and ended up wasting 20 minutes. The answer is no. No, it's really hard to do that. In fact, there is just a lot of things that can go wrong, and typically Azumarill, due to either paralysis or due to just missing, will not actually get through all 3 Pokemon by itself, but it does a really good job. I did say that this was intended to be a bit more of a chiller challenge to show off some cool Johto Pokemon, and there are going to be some really interesting strategies used. But yeah, not every video I make is going to be the hardest challenge I've ever done. This one actually, if you keep watching, is deceptively difficult in a lot of parts. I was stunned how many attempts certain things took me. Right now, things are looking pretty great, and we are going to... The rest of this stream, I didn't do anything because I broke this up into a few streams. This was the very first one, and I wanted to end it in kind of an interesting way. First and foremost, we're going to catch a Johto Pokemon that actually isn't available in Johto. Slugma, it's only available in Kanto, like Houndour, but it is available in Fiery Path, and yeah, it kind of sucks. I mean, I knew it sucks. I've tried to use it in Colosseum, but I love Slugma. It's a fire snail. What a cool concept. Unfortunately, it's pretty slow and not strong enough for how slow it is. It's kind of like bad Torkoal. It's not as bulky as I need it to be, and the rock typing serves as more of a hindrance, actually, than a benefit, but I love it. So it's on the team. Also, we don't really have many other options. But on Route 113, we are going to get Skarmory, and so, funny enough, this is not the first Skarmory I found. This is the second. Did you know Skarmory's catch rate is abysmal? And yeah, I actually ran out of Pokeballs the first time. Oopsies. So this is like a Nuzlite with now an asterisk because I'm supposed to catch the first one. But hey, at this point, this is kind of like a casual run with some vague Nuzlocke undertones. Yeah, that doesn't serve as nice of a title, but is more accurate. But I'm having fun, and that's really what the point of this was. I kind of just wanted something sort of, not crazy. But we do one really cool thing here that you may not know is even a possibility. So, you may notice we have a suspiciously non-Johto Pokemon on our team, Nincada. Nincada has the Compound Eyes ability. And starting in Pokemon Emerald, Compound Eyes, even when a Pokemon is fainted, when leading the party, makes the chance of a Pokemon holding a wild item increase, and increase somewhat significantly. We go from, I believe, a 5% chance that a Solrock is carrying the Sunstone, and you can see my Skarmory knows Thief, to, actually, I'm actually going to use the Solrock to level up, but it's now 20%. Still, it did actually take quite a bit of time, and thankfully my Skarmory doesn't faint. But eventually, after what felt like way too long, especially because I wanted to go to bed at this point, we thief away a Sunstone, and once we beat the Solrock, we will use said Sunstone. Wait, I have to go and take it from Skarmory, and then we'll use said Sunstone on the Gloom, and now finally, I have a team of 5 Johto Pokemon. Still don't have a full team, but we will have more Pokemon than Flannery. This is the first time in the entire run we have more Pokemon than a gym leader. Now, Flannery's team on paper looks really easy, and in practice was pretty easy. We go for Defense Curl. Numel went for Pop Pop. We miss with a Rollout, but that's okay. We hit with the Rollout, another Pop Pop. and then rollout number 2 hits. In theory, we win. Rollout number 3 hits. We should one-shot because our rollout now effectively has, what is it, like 320 base power? And now this should be, oh, we missed. It would have been 400, but we're fine. This is now 40, and we don't get paralyzed. We miss again. And we don't get paralyzed. So another 40, and we still don't get paralyzed, and the end was actually some really atrocious luck, and that's how easy this was. I'm going to try to keep all my Pokemon not fainted, by the way, as best I can. And yeah, that actually still wasn't even a threat. One thing, though, about beating Flannery is that while it does open up Route 111, there aren't any new Johto Pokemon we can catch at this point. So while we can use Route 111 to battle some trainers and level up for Norman, we can't actually do that much in terms of, you know, new strategies or whatnot. But that's okay, because there was one thing I wanted to get in the Fiery Path now, and I think that Norman should be not too big a deal. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see, because Norman can be very annoying. All right, so Norman leads with a Spinda. I'm going to lead with Skarmory, and you can already see the move I got. I go for Steel Wing. It's 70 base power. And then I go for Steel Wing again. This is going to waste the Hyper Potion. I go for Thief just to kind of... darn it. And then I get confused. Okay, so now we're going to go into Crobat here. Psybeam is fine. We go Wing Attack. All right, let's swap again. Back into Skarmory. It goes for Teeter Dance. Okay, let's swap again back into Crobat. And then Teeter Dance. All right, let's swap again back into Skarmory. And Psybeam. And we're not confused. And we knock out Spinda. That was irritating. Vigoroth is next. I'm going to go for, all right, Facade. That's why we don't want to go for Toxic here. But Skarmory is very bulky. It also has a chance to get a defense boost with Steel Wing. I did think potentially Norman would heal, but I was incorrect. It went for Slash, but that's okay. You can see my Blossom has Bullet Seed, slightly stronger than Absorb, but not really a great grass move. Against Lanoon, it went for Facade. I put it to sleep. That's great. And now all we gotta do is Defense Curl, which will double the power of Rollout. It stays asleep, and so Slash does very little. Rollout 2 knocks out Lanoon. Rollout 3 does significant damage, and Counter! Of all the things it could have used. Well, alright. That's okay. We've already allowed Pokemon to faint. Oh god, please don't miss. Okay. There it goes for Counter against Skarmory. And yeah, at this point, it does have Facade, but it went for Yawn. And does it have any more potions left? Wait, did he use? No, he didn't use both of them, right? No. Okay, so there's another Hyper Potion, but the Toxic is going to rack up. We actually can just swap between... Oh, wait, it has Facade. Right. That's why you're really not supposed to do this. But between Crobat using Wing Attack and Toxic, we're able to knock out Slacking. If this were a proper Nuzlocke, this would be a very poor battle because we lost 2 Pokemon. But in whatever the heck this is, it was great. We won. First try victory. So just to recap, we have first try victoried 3 of the 5 gym leaders, and the other 2 were second try victories. That leaves just 3 gym leaders remaining, and then the Elite 4. So things are looking good, right? Well, we'll talk about it. Once you beat Norman, you get access to Surf, which opens up a ton of the game. The level caps actually don't increase by a ton, which is kind of nice. It's only level 33. So we don't have to level up as much as we will for other gyms. But since we have so many Pokemon, there still is quite a bit of leveling up and prep work, which we will skip, and you'll pick it back up as we actually battle Monona, since I think that's the most interesting part of the run. The prep work is quite tedious and boring, but again, because I'm playing with the if you faint before, you can't use it, you'll see we only have a team of 4 Pokemon since I actually lost a couple carelessly on the way. Still, I had the most important one. That Pokemon, of course, is Crobat. No, I'm kidding. See, this Swablu uses Perish Song, meaning locking myself into Rollout could be a big problem. And in fact, I didn't know this, but Tropius came out next. So I actually don't mind having Crobat. Ooh, I thought it might heal here, so I was trying to be a little cheeky, but I should have just gone for wing attack. I actually would prefer it heal. Okay, it does heal. Nice. I have done the wrong move every time, but there really isn't much to be worried about since this will be, I think, the last Pokemon Crobat faces. So we knock out the Tropius. Pelipper... Actually, Pelipper is really annoying because it likes to use Supersonic and... why not? It likes to use Protect as well. There we go. But I guess let's just go for Surf. All right, I went for Protect. I'll get a Defense Curl off. It goes for Aerial Ace. And will this knock it out? It doesn't. But we don't get a Heal or a Protect. And we're at level 34. Double Edge is a great move, but not for us. Skarmory, we almost knock it out. Ooh, Sand Attack's bad. Hyper Potion, we do hit. And now as long as we hit here, we're good. Dragon Dance and... Oh, bad. Let's go to Skarmory here because I do have an alternate strategy that will work. As much as it loves to Dragon Dance, I can poison it and then go for Steel Wing, try to boost my defense, and it's only so much Altaria can do. It's also an Oran Berry, by the way, not a Citrus Berry. That was how many Dragon Dances? 3 Dragon Dances, and how little did Aerial Ace do? So I had a very solid backup, and by beating Winona, all our Pokemon are back, including Wynot, which I've already evolved into Wobbuffet. You will not see Wobbuffet this entire run. Blossom was the other Pokemon, of course, to faint, so we're going to withdraw them from the S Realm. Just like in Yu-Gi-Oh!, going to the Shadow Realm is usually just a timeout. You'll be back eventually. It's fine. It's not as permanent as Merrick and Pegasus and all of them like it to be. You typically come back as good as new. And speaking as good as new, we finally have a team of 6 Pokemon for now. Wobbuffet is very bad in these types of challenges because it's all about soaking up damage. And in a challenge where if you faint, you can't use the Pokemon for a while, kind of not super usable. But now is where we have to talk about where most of the Johto Pokemon actually are, and the other rule of Nuzlocke I chose to violate, which is the 1 Pokemon per area rule. So I did keep Species Clause, and I only allowed myself to keep the first Pokemon I actually caught. But because most of the Johto Pokemon are actually in the Safari Zone, we either had to stick to this exact team, which, as you will see, would not have done very well, or we actually get to use some of the Pokemon I actually want to use, and we just caught all the Johto Pokemon in the Safari Zone. Now, you might say, well, J-Rose, at this point, what even is this? I don't know, but I'm just letting you know what I did. I'm not looking for a justification or, like, permission. I'm just explaining the thought process as this point in the game came up. I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to use Girafarig, and I kind of want to use Phanpy, and also Phanpy can run away, and that would mean no Pokemon in the Safari Zone. So, in the end, I just caught all the Pokemon I could catch in the Safari Zone, and that means by the next time you guys see me, which will be Tate and Liza, we will have a lot of new and exciting team members. And we can actually switch our team members in and out for different gyms, although that means we have to train them all. But that's okay, it's just time. No real difficulty as long as we're careful. And time would tick by. Because if you've played Pokemon Emerald before, you know this is a section of the game where there are a ton of battles, and none of them were difficult. We didn't lose any Pokemon, thankfully, but it took a really long time. So we enter Stream 3. In case you were wondering, in real time, this run has taken around 6 hours, and we haven't even battled Tate and Liza yet. And you might be wondering, well, how much longer do you think this is going to take? Well, let's talk a little bit about Tate and Liza. In my solo challenges, they really suck because we only have 1 Pokemon, but in this challenge, it's going to be 2-on-2, so it's fine, but there is a big jump in level cap here. We go from Winona's level 33 Altaria to Tate and Liza's level 42 Solrock and Lunatone. And considering we have more than 6 Pokemon to level up, this was a pretty time-consuming thing, and although I'm not doing this purely as a Nuzlocke, I kind of want to stick as close to it as possible, in case maybe I do this again one day. And for that reason, I was taking this somewhat seriously, and I spent quite a lot of time. And once again, I completely understand why so many Nuzlockers just hack in rare candies, because oh my god, is it just tedious to battle every single trainer, especially in Hoenn where they're all on water routes and you gotta go swimming, and yeah, it's not super fun. Now, if you're wondering, well, how long did this all take? Well, overall, it's 6.5 hours of real human time, which is a long time for a run, by the way, and it's 1743 of in-game time. Thank you, Retron5, for making this slightly less awful. But thankfully, Tate and Liza wasn't so bad. Meet one of my all-time favorite Pokemon, Girafarig. I absolutely love Girafarig. I never get to use it, and Girafarig uses Shadow Ball and crits Xatu. It would not have knocked it out. This Girafarig, by the way, is plus attack and minus special attack, which is irritating, but whatever. I put Claydol to sleep, and then I use Magical Leaf on Solrock. That 2 versus 1 is able to knock out Solrock, and so long as Claydol snoozes, we're going to be able to do the exact same thing versus Lunatone, and oh, wait, actually no, Lunatone survives, which isn't great, but with the Citrus Berry, it actually isn't going to heal. Do I screw up? I think I do. Yep, I messed up, and I left Lunatone alive, because I think I did think it was going to heal, but I should have been able to see it wasn't in healing range, unlike the Claydol, which is, and now Girafarig is asleep. I do want to swap it out, so out comes a Azumarill, and Magical Leaf, by the way, they're both 60 base power attacks. Lunatone gets knocked out by the Magical Leaf, and now we can just go for Surf, and it wakes up, goes for Psychic. Blossom has great special defense, and first try victory, we defeat Tate and Liza. Not too bad. And now I'm just going to skip ahead, guys, because nothing here is all that interesting. We do catch a Chinchou, but if we use Chinchou, then I can't use my Azumarill, so it is one of my favorite Pokemon, but I have used this Pokemon a lot. In fact, there's a couple runs coming up. I anticipate it's going to get some pretty heavy usage, but yeah, today I wanted to stick with the team, for the most part, that brought me here, and that meant kind of sticking. Crobat's gone. That's how Big Riggs got on the team, but I like using the Pokemon that are kind of underutilized, and maybe it'll be really cool. But anyway, after a lot of tediousness later, we make it to Hoenn, and I'm going to have Blossom lead. Juan's Love Disc is actually really bad if you have a Pokemon of the opposite gender because it uses Attract often. Thankfully, I don't have that happen, but I do use my Person Berry because it confused me. Now, the Person Berry is actually for Petal Dance, which I've taught Blossom for a little bit more damage, but still Blossom gets through the first 2 Pokemon, becomes confused, and now I swap out also Donphan is here. I made a lot of changes. Girafarig tanks the Ice Beam. I go for Psychic, and I miss. It goes for Double Team. I go for Psychic again, and now, ooh, I get the Spadef drop. All right. Why do I even have Macargo here? Azumarill, I choose you. It goes for Water Pulse, and of course I'm confused. And has Resto Chesto, which is really annoying, and yeah, I'm just gonna let you know that this battle didn't go super great. I lost. I don't know who's editing this, but I think it's 4 or 5 times until I came up with a strategy. Now, I do want you guys to realize and recognize this. One of the things, like, remember the Professor Oaks challenge where I said it was the hardest challenge? One of the difficulties in these runs is just sticking with it. Not rushing head first, being patient, making sure you've thought everything out. I suck at that. With a Professor Oaks challenge, it's more just finding the Pokemon, trying to keep yourself engaged, and that is a form of difficulty. It's a thing a lot of people can't do. I struggle with it. But with Nuzlocke, oh my god, I just want to win. And I just battle again and again. This is why I'm bad at Final Fantasy. I just do the battle until I lose enough times that I figure out, oh yeah, this is what I'm actually supposed to do. That is my strategy. It drives my chat nuts. In a lot of other RPGs, that's such a bad way. It's why, like, people hated watching me play Final Fantasy. They're like, you're doing it wrong. But if I lose 15 times, I'll start to figure out what I'm actually supposed to do. I do find that fun, by the way, but it is antithetical to what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Well, the way I actually won is, I trust me, you might have seen this one before. It's just Defense Curl and then Rollout, and then just making sure a track doesn't hit. Even Whiscash can't really stand in my way. And then when it came to Kingdra, I just needed some luck. That really was it. It was just use Rollout. Boring. But that's the thing with actual Nuzlocke. Boring is good. Same strategy that works, keep using it. I keep trying to do interesting and new and unique things, but the thing with trying to do different strategies you haven't done before is that there's a reason you haven't done them before. They probably don't work. And we already found something that does work. The rollout thing. Unfortunately, as we get to the Elite Four, that it does work is going to stop. And while I do make sure to level up all my Pokemon, major asterisks here, I'll talk about that at the end, but it still didn't go super great at all. Really. So Sydney was never a problem. I don't think I lost to Sydney a single time. And I don't want to talk too much about Sydney here because watching this it's not painful, but I did come up with a very consistent strategy against Sydney. Here, I'm all over the place. So let's just skip a little bit ahead. I mean, you can watch the battle, but we'll return to Sydney and let's talk about Phoebe. There are two strategies I found worked for Phoebe, and all of them involved Skarmory being first. The most annoying thing is this Dusclops. It loves to spam Protect, and eventually it will use Curse. Now, with multiple Pokemon, this isn't a problem. We can just swap, and it actually can't hurt Girafarig. Now, this time with Girafarig, I'm using Shadow Ball. That actually isn't the play here. And what do I end up knocking it out with? I do end up knocking out with Girafarig. Well, Girafarig with Shadow Ball, I mean, I love Girafarig, but it is not the strongest Pokemon. So I kind of have to swap through a bunch of different Pokemon. And I thought I was in the clear, but then Dusclops knocks out Girafarig. And I am playing that if a Pokemon faints between battles, it's done for the entire Elite Four run. And so I just couldn't stomach losing Girafarig and eventually Blossom. So I ended up resetting. And I also there was some other prep work. I was a little hasty. Again, at this point, we've sort of abandoned the whole, hey, let's try to do this like a Nuzlocke thing. That's fine. Okay, so take two here. And I'm irritated that it took me as long as it did to figure out the strategy. So I'm going to kind of go through quickly. We're still using Girafarig and swapping between Pokemon, but the Dusclops is... So I went to the same level as Sydney's highest Pokemon. Apparently, you're allowed to go as high as Drake's highest Pokemon. That would take me a while. I'm just letting you know why I'm level 49. To this point, my Sydney and Phoebe battles are still so suboptimal. There's still a ton of swapping and really, really subpar strategies being used. So I don't really want to talk about them yet, because once I show you guys what I'm going to be doing going forward, you're going to wonder why it took me so long. But let's first talk about Glacia, because this battle actually was genuinely difficult. Now, I know Azumarill with Rollout might be the strat, but I wanted to try something else. So this is Blossom. I have Sunny Day, Giga Drain, and Solar Beam. Blossom's ability is Chlorophyll, which doubles its speed in the sun. Additionally, Glacia is pretty prone to using Hail whenever there's a different weather element or Hail is not on the battlefield. Another thing to note is that the majority of her Pokemon, even if they're water type, do not have water moves. The one major exception is Walrein. Macargo I really wanted to use here, but sadly I wasn't able to. And finally, I did go to Azumarill with Rollout, got some really atrocious luck, and then lost Girafarig and reset, which is super irritating. Alright, so Glacia, again, I haven't gotten to a consistent strategy yet on the other ones, so we'll return, but I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, just do Azumarill Rollout, it is your bread and butter. And one issue is the paralysis from Celio. This is something that happens pretty common in Emerald runs, and if I don't want Azumarill to faint, I really don't have a lot of great swap-ins. I lost Girafarig again, and while I did knock out Walrein, I'm now 2 Pokemon down for Drake, but I at least wanted to see what Drake would be like, and the answer is horrendous. So the first Pokemon is Shelgon, which likes to go for Protect, and I'm going to actually skip by because I do knock it out with Donphan. We haven't talked about this Donphan, but oh my god, Kingdra. So this Kingdra is the absolute worst. Absolutely loves to buff its stats, just really annoying to deal with, and by the time I get to Altaria, I'm not able to outspeed. I lose Azumarill, and then I do make it to Salamence, but without any way to actually knock it out. And yep, that's going to be another reset. So I have so far lost to everyone but Sydney, which is just fantastic. But remember those consistent strategies I was talking to you about? Well, here's the Phoebe one. This one came first. So what we're going to do is leading with Skarmory is correct. And we're basically just stalling until Dusclops uses Curse. As we learned in the self-destruct run, when Pokemon use Curse, they're not going to knock themselves out if their AI is decent. Now, we don't actually want to use Toxic. This is actually a mistake. And in this particular battle, it doesn't hurt me. This is not the final form of the strategy. What we're going to do, though, the part that does matter, is we have taught our Girafarig Calm Mind. And even though this is supposed to be a physical attacking Girafarig based on its ability, if we use Calm Mind, we can eventually get to the point. I think I used 4 here. What was it? Did I use 4? And Psychic will knock out most things. We unfortunately should use 5 to get the knockouts to be consistent against everything, but this is the strategy we're going to use going forward. Funny enough, Glacia, I actually ended up discovering 2 strategies. The first time I used the Girafarig strategy on Phoebe, I'm like, well, why wouldn't this work for Glacia? And the answer is it relies on Hypnosis hitting, and it relies on it staying asleep. And if that doesn't happen, we actually get into a lot of trouble. In this particular battle, we actually get some pretty decent luck here by getting an Icy Wind. And then we actually get, and this is kind of the big thing, is that Walrein didn't just go for Sheer Cold, which has a 30% chance to hit and knock out my Lantern. Also, Lantern is here. I told you we would use it. I didn't think I'd use it today, but we're using it. And we were able to knock out Glacia, and this time without any Pokemon lost. But I still don't know exactly what I want to do for Drake, and it would take me a while to figure it out, sadly. I mean, the Skarmory leading thing works, and you can see I have Heracross. I can try the strategy I just used, but rather than using Calm Mind, I can go for Bulk Up. There is a fundamental problem with this, which is that a lot of Drake's Pokemon use special attacks, including Flygon, which has Flamethrower. And since so many things are mixed attackers, I can't just reliably leave a Pokemon in like I did versus Phoebe. Now, I do a little bit of switching around, and basically, I'm just testing stuff. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to Toxic the Flygon. I have Ice Beam on my Lantern, and I ended up knocking out the Flygon. But the thing is, when a Pokemon can't faint, it really fundamentally changes the way you view battles, and that's what made this so difficult. It is a bit of a war of attrition, because I have to basically 6-0 every single team, when if I were doing this normally, I would just let Lantern faint and say, Lantern, you did a great job. But Lantern, I need for the champion, so I can't let Lantern faint. And this was the problem I was having. Winning, easy. Winning while not losing Pokemon, less easy. So a win wasn't really a win unless we 6-0'd. In this Glacia battle, I tried an alternate strat with Heracross, where we do Bulk Up, and I didn't know how many I would need to sweep. I just used 1. And actually, this would have worked, but for the fact that my Heracross wasn't trained enough and didn't have enough EVs in speed. Seriously, you're gonna see that if I had more EVs in speed, I would have one-shot that Glalie, and then I would have one-shot Walrein, but instead, I swapped to Lantern and lost. This would stop being a problem, but unfortunately, it was still a problem right now because I stubbornly wasn't allowing myself to level up. However, I did inconsistently with the strat make it by Glacia. It just was like a 75% chance instead of it would end up being 100%, and I will show you when that happens. I still don't know how to even start off against Drake, right? Like, do we start off with Lantern and go for Ice Beam? I mean, it kind of works, right? And then what's going to come out next? I don't know. But it could be double super effective. Okay, Flygon. But I can't tank the Earthquake. And of course, I don't outspeed. And I have Azumarill back on the team. Welcome back, Azumarill. And that also has Ice Beam. Thank you, Game Corner. But while I am making some significant progress, the final Pokemon Salamence is just too strong. And if I lose Lantern and Azumarill, I just don't have anything that does enough damage. And to be frank, guys, I could just take you on this long journey I was on until, you know, I didn't even realize I could level up more than I have. And it just angers me. Like, I wasted so much time. And I wasn't even following a rule. I just forgot. It's not the first Elite Four member, it's the last one. Anyway, I actually do beat Drake without leveling up, if you want to know the truth. It just obviously wasn't the final battle, because if it was, I wouldn't talk about leveling up, right? Now, this battle is a complete mess. So Lantern leading. I, by the way, got some more rare candies in the overworld. That's why Lantern is at a slightly higher level. Yeah, it relied on a freeze against Shelgon, and then I have to switch into Skarmory, and then I have to switch into Azumarill, and then I use Ice Beam, tanking the Earthquake, but Ice Beam doesn't knock it out. I have the Citrus Berry, which allows me to tank the Earthquake and knock out the Flygon with still 13 HP remaining. I won't outspeed Altaria, so I go into Lantern, which tanks the Aerial Ace and the Double Edge, but Ice Beam doesn't do enough to knock out Altaria. I go for Rest. I have a Resto Chesto, but Altaria doesn't heal as I expected it to. And so I start trying to go for Calm Mind Girafarig, but it doesn't heal again. And I'm hoping I'm going to outspeed, but I don't. But Crunch doesn't knock me out, so I'm able to hit it with Psychic. And then I swap to Heracross to tank the Crunch. And then I just go for Facade, hoping it burned me, which it did. And I still didn't knock it out! That was the strat. It was the Hail Mary strat. So I just let Heracross faint. The RNG deities had other ideas as they decided, you know, it would be even funnier. Rather than fainting, let's heal here and then miss with a Rock Slide at 10%. And then Kingdra, I do swap out and I have to go to Blossom. I put it to sleep, and then while it's asleep, I go into Skarmory, which has Aerial Ace, so I don't need to worry about missing, and I can Toxic it and then use Blossom to just barely tank all the attacks and make it to Wallace. Of course, without Lantern, which I was planning to use, and I'm severely underleveled. And if you're like, hey, Jaros, did this go well? No, it didn't. I wasn't sure how the AI would work, so I went for Defense Curl, it went for Rain Dance, and then I go for Rollout. It went for Double Edge. I hit with a second Rollout. It went for Double Edge, and I hit with a third Rollout. This is good, but I'm probably getting outsped by whatever this is. It's a Ludicolo, and it outspeeds and goes for Giga Drain, although Ludicolo has the opposite of Chlorophyll, or the counterpart, I should say, Swift Swim, so it's pretty fast. I then Toxic the Ludicolo, and yeah, that's it for Ludicolo. I can now put 3 layers of spikes to get 25% damage on everything. I swap into Velocim to get a Sunny Day down, and once I have Sunny Day, I can go for Giga Drain, try and get some health back, but of course it's very difficult since Ludicolo is being really annoying, and because it used a full restore and not a hyper potion, it has revived itself from the Toxic, but that's alright. My Skarmory can just Aerial Ace. Now out comes Tentacruel. I actually don't know what to do here, and yeah, bye Skarmory, cool. So, go Girafarig. So, it goes for Hydro Pump, I go for Calm Mind, and it knocks me out with Sludge Bomb. Okay. Go Blossom. It goes for Toxic, I put it to sleep. Go Heracross. It stays asleep. It wakes up, goes for Hydro Pump, and it crits, and I don't have Earthquake on this because I forgot to do that, and Yep, and at this point, I was actually kind of done with this challenge. I was getting really irritated. And that is when someone in chat who watches Flygon told me, J-Rose, you know you're underleveled, right? Well, let's talk about what happens when we're not underleveled. Let's talk about the Sydney strat. I'm now level 55, the level of Salamence. We go for spikes 3 times. This creates some positive ranges, but I actually didn't need them anymore. Now after this, we're going to swap into Heracross. So Heracross goes for Brick Break, knocks out Mightyena, and yeah, this was the easiest way of doing things because Shiftry, my accuracy is lowered and it typically like to go for Swagger. I have the Person Berry on Skarmory, but it didn't this time, so I just go for Aerial Ace, and with the spikes, it knocks it out. Then Crawdaunt likes to go for Surf, but it didn't. This would typically be a 3-hit KO, and it still is. I swap into Heracross because it's going to heal. This is actually new. The strategy actually changed. Typically, Skarmory would sweep after using Swagger, and since that didn't happen, you're actually not seeing the typical strategy, but I never lost to Sydney, so it didn't matter, and Heracross mops up. You have already seen the Phoebe strategy, so I don't really need to talk too much about it, but I will note that this time I don't Toxic as I said, and I don't need as many Calm Minds as I did before, and this one is a much, much, much cleaner battle. As for the Glacia battle, so Glacia, we're going to just use one bulk up, that's all we need, and because we're at level 55, we're actually going to outspeed all the Glalie. I was worried that perhaps one bulk up wasn't enough for Walrein. I didn't do damage calcs, so I knew that Celio, unless it froze me, which it didn't with Blizzard, I had a Citrus Berry, I was fine, and I knew I would sweep. But now we have to face Drake, and I didn't exactly have the best strategy, so I just equipped a bunch of Citrus Berries and prayed Lantern leading was the strat, because it worked last time, right? Well, Ice Beam doesn't knock it out, and Rock Tomb lowers my speed. I do know Drake is going to heal here, so I can Ice Beam again, and I'm going to swap into Skarmory. So it goes for Protect, which is great. It double protects, which is fine. Skarmory's faster than you think, so Aerial Ace knocks it out. Flygon comes out next, and I know now that Flygon is going to go for Flamethrower. While Azumarill isn't thick fat, it is able to tank. It's able to tank Earthquakes far better, and I'm able to knock it out with Ice Beam with 41 health remaining, and I'm pretty sure I equipped a Citrus, which means I can heal, and that means I can stay in and go for Ice Beam against Altaria, and in fact, it depends how bold I want to be. I opt to go into Skarmory. It did go for Double Edge, and then I go for Toxic. I shouldn't have done that, but I thought the Toxic plus the Aerial Ace, I was a little worried. And actually, maybe I should have done that. This actually worked really well. Scratch that. This was a good idea. So now out comes Salamence. It's going to go for Flamethrower. It doesn't have Earthquake, so it goes for Dragon Claw. And Ice Beam doesn't quite one-shot it. I don't know if it's in healing range or not. And I just hoped it was, which it was. I go for another Ice Beam, and now I swap once again into... okay, now I actually have to think about this. Blossom. It goes for Dragon Claw. And I don't think Flamethrower is going to knock it out. So I go for Sunny Day, and now I'm going to outspeed. And even though it double resists, Solar Beam does knock it out. And now we have just one Pokemon remaining, Kingdra, in the sun, which it's bad. And I think Heracross actually can finish this off, right? Goes for Body Slam, doesn't paralyze. I wish it did. I go for Mega Horn. It goes for Dragon Dance. 85% chance. I'm not paralyzed again. And that was a very, very clean Drake battle. Still, you can see I don't have like a perfect strategy, but I'm happy that my first try at this level worked. So we have 6 Pokemon for Wallace. Like in any Nuzlocke, at this point, Pokemon can faint, which typically makes the champion a lot easier because we can be a lot more reckless with our Pokemon. I have rare candies, so I didn't save after every attempt. There are like 13 rare candies, and you can get more via pickup if you choose. So there are tons and tons of rare candies available. I leveled everything up, actually I miscounted, to 58 except for Heracross, so hopefully that will be okay. And hopefully this will be my final battle in this run. So Wallace outspeeds with Wailord, and this is clutch. I didn't know that, by the way. I should have. But because that is the case, the weather out is sun, not rain, and we outspeed, going for Solar Beam and knocking out Wailord. Easy peasy. Milotic comes in. I know it has Ice Beam. I know it has good Spadef, but I'm going to knock it out. Probably, maybe. I'm not sure. Ah, that sucks. That really sucks. Oh, well. So I do know that Wallace has to heal. So I'm going to go Giraffe Rig and get off a singular Calm Mind. And now we're going to go... Actually, you know what? Let's do a second Calm Mind. Sun's gone. Surf doesn't crit. I go for a third Calm Mind. I'm getting a little greedy, and it goes for Toxic. All right. Well, Thunderbolt will 3/4 it, and my Citrus Berry activates. Unfortunately, I don't think Big Riggs is going to be with us for long, but hopefully it will knock out the Tentacruel at least. We outspeed, we go for Psychic, and that is a strong Pokemon down. Ludicolo is out next. I don't want to swap. I just go for Psychic. It goes for Surf. And now Skarmory should be able to Revenge KO. I go for Aerial Ace. Down goes Ludicolo. Now out comes the Whiscash, and I just go for Toxic. Whiscash actually has pretty terrible moves against Skarmory, and I don't know why I set up a Spikes there. I am forgetting that the final Pokemon is in fact Gyarados, and yeah, it really is just me forgetting Gyarados is the last Pokemon. Anyway, Heracross comes out, and I wish I remembered it was Gyarados, because it is quite a shock when it is, and yeah, I should just swap into Lantern. I went for Bulk Up because I'm like, haha, I'm not going to lose any Pokemon. Then I see the Dragon Dance, my eyes get wide, and I'm like, all right, let's go Azumarill, because now I know it has Earthquake, so I can't just swap. Yeah, there it is, the Earthquake. I go for Defense Curl, up my defenses, and it goes for Hyper Beam, and that is the only reason I win. Had it gone for anything else, I would have lost there, but due to, as Minerva McGonagall says in the infamous Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone movie, sheer dumb luck. I love the way she says it. But I get 10 points to Jairo's door, and we have beaten Hoenn with just Johto Pokemon. It took me 10 hours. Can you believe that? I didn't even do this as a Nuzlocke. This was way harder, and apparently Hoenn and Sinnoh is worse, although I wanted to do Johto and Sinnoh. If you guys want to see more Johto, Hoenn, Pokemon from the wrong region and other regions, let me know. This was really fun to do. But the follow-up video is whether I can beat the Battle Frontier with just Johto Pokemon. This would include the Battle Factory, where I don't really get to pick my own Pokemon. And I think that will be one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. So if this video gets, I don't know, let's say 10,000 likes, I'm going to do it anyway. But get it to 10,000 likes. I'd appreciate it. Anyway, I don't know when this video is coming out, but there's going to be a lot of videos in August and a ton in November, December. So we're going to eat well, J-Rose 11 fans. Not that I'm a fan of myself. I am me. Anyway, I'm going to go. I've been talking a long time. I need a break. Bye, guys.